Alright, draft physics video. A few subjects, I think. I guess I'll first do some comments, but I eventually want to get to a video Hilster, David D. Hilster, made. And, he's a linguist, and I do find myself tripping over some of the words he uses or the way he uses phrases. And, he's made a video where he says charge isn't real. And I just think it's it's not a very good game to play with the words because the concept of charge is real. There's a real concept of things being different and having this attraction and repulsion, and obviously I would extend charge to being to include things like gravity and magnetism, because the same mechanism is the source of the differences being created, the change in the universe, so to speak, that's creating this reaction. But it's like there's no denying the plus end of a battery is different than the negative end, vice versa. No denying the one side of the magnet is different than the other side. And that concept, the difference, is what we call, they have a charge change, polarity change. That makes the difference. So I don't see any point. So anyway, I'm making that part now, it seems. But we'll jump to that later. I'll play a little bit of this video and say the same thing again. Yeah, won't that be cool? Alright, so one thing I wanted to get to. The other day, I did in the video, I mentioned Miles Mathis, and just wanted to explain the context of that. A guy had left a comment, saying, Miles, check it out, solar seismic community, it's your shit, do it now, and he leaves a link. So that's why I had Miles Mathis on the brain at the moment in that video. So I just want to explain that reference, and so I pointed out Miles Mathis, as I had to point out before. And again, people who can't figure that out, I think, might even be too stupid to bother telling them you're not Miles Mathis, because they still might not understand. I'm not Miles Mathis, and they probably still won't understand that because they were stupid enough to think I was in the first place. And such. I mean, they were so undetail oriented. I mean, physics really is, if you're not willing to be detail oriented, physics ain't for you, because there's devils all over the details. And people just keep talking in these vagaries, and the language has got to be narrowed, and there's got to be a difference between just bullshit and real shit. So anyway, it's just annoying people show up and talk some shit. So I figure out just to wear these talk shitters. This one's worth it before I delete it. Ken has 106,000 subscribers and you have 1,000. More than me, but angry photographer wins. LOL. So in the remark, you call him angry photographer, and you don't think that somehow his popularity, that is his 106 subscribers, has something to do with the majority of his videos being about cameras? You really think that people have showed up to hear about hyperboloids? Too stupid. That's Jeff Cameron, just for reference. You put him in the too stupid category as a stupid looking icon of some jerk. It must be him. Anyway. Alright, so this guy, Heavy Metal James Dean. So there's two comments on the Neil deGrasse Tyson video that I conceded was a shitty video in the video, just because they were so uninteresting when he was talking to Joe Rogan. Just the generic, oh, isn't the universe fun and fancy? It's like a parade. Anyway. So you just go on other people's material and troll on it to make you feel better. So here you are commenting on somebody else's material, and you can't get the connection between those two things? Yes, I chose to comment on a video. How did I do something different than what you're doing, idiot? Does it make you feel better to write these little snarky comments, little pussy? Anyway, picked on in high school much? Question mark. You have a small penis much? Question mark. There, I won. Yeah, I'd much rather be picked on in school than have a small penis like you, loser. Gee. You were too nerdy to hang out with Joe Rogan types. Why would I want to hang out with, if there was such a type, and that type was at all cool, why would I want to hang out with it? Why exactly would I want to hang out with guys? So, if you wanted to impress me at all with this comment, you should have said you were too nerdy to hang out with uh, Barbie Benton types or something. That might have hurt my feelings a little. But missing out on hanging out with Joe? Yeah, sorry. Maybe you had best buddies when you were, little butt buddies when you were in school. But yeah, I didn't bother with that shit much, fucker. Shit. Especially types. The only type I hung out with were types like me, dopey. Why would I hang out with people I hated? That would be stupid. Joe Rogan's a douche. Anyway, and too stupid and negative to fit in with the science kids. So that's another thing. You want to hang out with the nerds. Alright? Preposterous nerds. And I actually did out of sympathy. So you even have that wrong. I used to do charity work for nerds. I'd explain to them how, picking your nose is not cool. Okay, wearing your pants up to your nipples, not cool. Chicks don't go for that shit. Makes you look kind of awkward, and you makes your torso look too short. Anyway, like science kids like Neil. That'd be so special, wouldn't it? So this is your pathetic attempt at some form of revenge or a validation, and this is your pathetic attempt at something, right? And why? Because you want to, you fantasize about semi-overweight black guys doing you in the ass. This is a really sad, and all the sad assholes sitting in their mother's basement shoving Cheetos down their faces, masturbating to anime, and supporting a channel like this is even more pathetic. Now, this is coming from a douchebag, right? So he just did this, masturbating to anime thing. And check out his banner art. The most famous anime artwork ever. Right? I mean, that's from like the best anime movie. Everybody says it's the best, I guess. I didn't understand shit in it, but it was beautifully done. But I mean, the irony of this douche. I mean, it's just amazing. Yes. So just prove how you're just doing self-analysis with this description, that you're really the pathetic loser, doesn't have any friends and never will have a friend, and has to masturbate to anime. Grow up, he says. This has come from a guy who calls himself Heavy Metal James Dean. Yeah, and he's telling other people to grow up, like maybe even be a human being. And he has an icon that's some Skeletor thing. He's a Skell Man. If you're so smart, then why don't you use your channel in a more productive manner? Yes, like, for example, anime art? Let me guess, because you're you're as intelligent as you try to come across. That makes sense, because you're not as intelligent as you try to come across. Those kind of statements never make much sense, right? I mean, trying to come across as intelligent, like there's some intelligent purpose. If you don't know, if you already don't value intelligence, why would you try to come off as intelligent? But anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyone who tries to look better or smarter than others is trolling. And what are you trying to do? Or belittling others is usually the dullest knife. So, I mean, that's been going on forever. I hate to, break your little theory there about how life works, but frankly, you can even go back to like cartoons, in the original newspapers and whatnot. Just cheap shots. All kinds of people have forever fought their adversaries with all kinds of weapons. And again, what was my weapon? Was to merely comment on how Neil deGrasse Tyson is a pompous, arrogant, you know, most famous for Pluto's not a planet. Well, maybe, could be. All right, never mind. I could be wrong. Yes, he's right. And if you are truly, truly are as intelligent as you're pretending to be, so somehow, somehow I'm posing as somebody intelligent. Well, exactly. Well, it's like a pantomime. I'm pantomiming intelligence, but I'm too stupid to be intelligent. But I can mimic intelligence. So that's how bad intelligence apparently is in your brain. Is that somebody who's stupid can mimic it successfully. So to you, that's what intelligence is, that weak. Yeah, that's why you fall for Neil deGrasse Tyson, the fakes. It's sad that you are so bitter and miserable. Again, this isn't an example of bitter misery, that you waste our time. How did I waste your time? I didn't invite you, fuckhead. You're wasting my time, see? I didn't force you to watch my video. You're commenting on my video, which is an implicit, here, I'm creating the obligation for you to read this crap. Isn't it? Yeah, pretty much. With negativity and trolling instead of educating your followers. I don't have followers, asshole. See, that's you're the one with that kind of mentality. This isn't about people following, it's about people understanding. And see, you're like the intelligence posers, because you think you can just win the argument without being intelligent. No, I'm going to actually win the argument with facts, okay, and good arguments. Not, I'm Joe Rogan, I'm popular. Yeah, I'm going to actually say something earning it, rather than, just doing it because sycophant, silly people like you, have a hard-on for it. This is the biggest waste of time. This is a bigger waste of time than Joe Rogan. So you're conceding Joe Rogan's a waste of time. Neil deGrasse Tyson goes on his show for what purpose? To sell a book that is pretty much as bullshit as it gets. The Universe for Dummies. And it's full of crap, shit, made-up bullshit. 90% of it has anything to do with the universe. It just has to do with the silly imagination of nerds. Anyway, pathetic. Fuck you. So then he goes on to say, also, you're completely wrong on the prearranged subject theory. Whatever the fuck that, now what does that mean? The prearranged subject theory. You so cleverly pulled out of your ass. So he's conceding my cleverness. This wasn't a clever comment. It was really dumb. So you didn't even match me in cleverness, you idiot. So anyway, enough of him. Man, just where do these assholes come from? Boggles the mind. Hot. It's 87 in here. It's a weird September, I must say. Like it. I'm enjoying it. It sort of fucks things up a little, just because my house is sort of arranged where the porch is on the south, and so the sun gets in there when it starts going low, and so it gets warm. Yeah, it gets hot in here, but it's it's not cold enough outside to mitigate against the heat. So anyway. So on to the main subject. Sorry for those who didn't need the sidetrack, but I just, every now and then I do feel an obligation to answer trolls who make useless and pointless, snarky remarks. I mean, my arguments are in the videos. You either make a counter argument to what I'm saying, but to say I'm not entitled to argue, just bullshit. That my argument is based on something other than the fact that I completely disagree with what the person's saying. I'm not arguing because I didn't get laid. I mean, it's just such a silly theory of why people disagree. Fuck. I mean, one that just shouldn't be allowed to just say stupid things like that with no evidence. It just should be against the law or something. Anyway, so charge is not real. That's how he really said that. And so, but you know, in his video, he's conceding that there's these conditions and phenomena that exist, but he's saying that somehow the word charge is just a label we give to these phenomena, and that's, yeah, every word in the vocabulary is just a label used to describe things that are basically round or things that are basically square, or something's basically something with a property. And so the property of charge is used in the same kind of manner that I would put in the same category as a word like polarization. The poles of a battery, for example, they're sometimes called that, you know, plus and minus, but that it's a condition that exists where you can create this idea of attraction and repulsion. And I would also agree that, in the sense that we shouldn't use the word and then just say nothing more on the subject. I mean, I guess there should be a concession. If you don't have a mechanism, you should say, well, they attract, and I don't know why. And physics doesn't seem to want to say that overtly, and they probably should. Where I could say they attract, and I do know why. And so, and that's why I certainly don't agree with your statement that charge is not real, because I think it is as real as it gets. It's the entire function of everything changing and moving in the universe changes and moves because of the mechanism of charge. It's the whole game. It really is. So anyway, we'll play a little bit of this. Yeah, I guess I'll turn the camera around.
Think about it. What is charge? Just because I put a positive on a proton and a negative on an electron.
Okay, now they didn't do that. They didn't just arbitrarily say, let's just label these things different, even though they're not different. No, they labeled them different because they were different, legitimately different.
They attract. We say they attract. We have
A significant phenomenon, okay? So it's not an insignificant phenomenon. So something happens that we can describe it as attraction. And now we're establishing that we've learned by experimenting with this attraction and repulsion force that happens because of this difference in charge. One thing is charged one way and one thing is charged the other way, and that means they'll respond oppositely to a given force. Nothing illegitimate in that.
many people, including in our group, in the CNPS, that talk about charge as a fundamental property of matter. That's a nice idea, but again, it is an arbitrary.
So again, it's clearly not arbitrary. Now, defining the cause, yeah. So just because Newton didn't have a cause for gravity, it was perfectly appropriate for him to call it gravity. I mean, you call the phenomenon something, right? So calling it charge is just labeling the phenomenon. It's not saying necessarily this is what's causing it. It's just saying this is the phenomenon of charge, which is when these two things come together, they either repel, or if they're in this configuration, they attract. And that's describing that phenomenon. And we understand the phenomenon as the two poles on a magnet are plus and minus electricity. So what is, there's no crime against sensible, reasonable description in that in and of itself. Again, Newton wasn't violating so it wasn't going beyond reason to call gravity gravity. Well, or whoever first labeled gravity. The phenomenon, whoever first called it, this whole, hey, it falls down. Whoever called that gravity didn't step beyond their appropriate rights.
An arbitrary attribute, as Dr. Alexander Unziker says.
Well, again, it says in what context? Arbitrary attribute as if what? The phenomena doesn't exist? Clearly things fall down. Clearly charge exists as a phenomenon. Things are attracted and repelled based on their properties.
And maybe he doesn't even agree with what I'm saying. I know he subscribes to my channel. He is an amazing guy. Maybe he does. But charge is something we could put on as arbitrary.
So you said again, you know, it's really not arbitrary. To use the word arbitrary or erroneous or as if it wasn't logical to label the phenomenon. It had to be called something. It was an identifiable phenomenon and it was labeled. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no reason to say charge doesn't exist. It's like saying gravity doesn't exist. No, you explain what you think causes gravity, and that's fine, and I can explain what I think causes charge. But for you to say charge isn't real, as if the phenomenon isn't real, I say you're going to have to show me.
The idea that an electron orbits a proton and that electrons have positive negative charge.
Yeah, well, I don't even concede the orbit thing, you know, technically. You know, nothing like the standard model. It's more like magnets being in balanced states and positions. But go on.
And protons have positive charge, and the reason the electron stays in orbit around the proton is because of charge. Well, we have why? Well, there's a field there. Well, what's the field made of?
Right. So that's a valid question, but you don't negate the existence of the realness of the phenomenon to say you have a different explanation of its cause. Their explanation is, yes, a magical field, because that's how physics, pop physics, that's what it does with everything, okay? Bending space. They just find some other place to make the reality happen, so they don't have to explain it in this universe. They can just put it in some kind of empty place, you know, invisible man. And so yes, invisible fields of magnetism and electricity, and invisible fields of gravity, and invisible fields in the standard Higgs fields, you know. Yeah, I'd say that, yes, criticize that. But don't criticize it by pretending, okay, or implying. Let's more specifically, don't do it by implying that the phenomenon isn't real. It's a real phenomenon. The top and bottom of the magnet are really different.
And we go on and on and on and on. But there are numbers of theories and models out there that don't have charge. For instance, our particle model, we don't have charge. The reason an electron is orbiting a proton is because we have G1 particle fields.
Yeah, that's right. And then you have to explain why the electrons repel each other with that same mechanism without making a distinction between electrons and protons. So I'd say good luck with that, frankly, to do it without creating a mechanical difference between electrons and protons and a mechanical difference in what's affecting them. And that's going to basically get you back to charge being real. The difference between an electron and a proton, they're real differences, and the real difference is the cause, in part, of the phenomenon.
Gravity 2, we have gravity 1, which is a field of G1 particles.
Yeah, you know, well, you should write a paper. To quote somebody else, you should publish it somewhere. I'm just joking, but you know, obviously he hasn't finished writing his book. Okay, but it's a little bit, just a little bit, causes a little cognitive dissonance when you defend a theory, okay, or argue a theory that you haven't presented yet. So I can't understand really what you're talking about. It's just too vague. It's just, you know, it's not, you know, the abstract isn't enough.
In all directions, a graviton model. And we have graviton 2 at the second level. G2 particles that keep G1 particles in orbit.
I know. So this is where the subject sort of gets changed, because, you know, he believes that this goes all the way down, you know, G infinity, And so there's basically like some kind of fractal universe where I suppose the speed of light doubles as you keep going down each level, or the speed of the fastest speed most things travel that go fast. I don't know what because he sort of believes you can go faster than light, which is another subject for debate.
We have a reason for those things. So another one.
I know, but see, you're just doing the same thing regular science does at this point. I understand you have it. I'm just saying you're not showing it. So they're doing the same thing. Instead of saying bent space did it, you're just saying to be explained later did it. Okay, and saying to be explained later did it isn't much better than bent space, frankly.
Ones I've read, there are some theories that have fluid dynamic theories, and they use the movement of fluid.
Yeah, I did that for a while. I was trying to keep the standard model, of the atom, and I was trying to keep the motion of the electron and all that speed and all that stuff, and saying, okay, well, what's happening is these are eddy currents, and don't need all that shit.
Dynamic movement for attraction and repulsion, just like the Deneuve effect, which I coined the Deneuve effect from Lionel Deneuve, a great experimentalist who shows underwater that you have cylinders in the same direction causing a flow around them will attract, and in opposite directions they will repel, just like.
Yeah, well, that's not exactly it's kind of an experiment we see all the time with satellites and clouds and all that kind of weather fronts and whatnot. But the problem with models like that is that ends up being kind of an ether theory, because you have to explain how they're transmitting the fact that they're in motion to each other and spinning, and that's without the medium to transmit that information. There's no way. Particle theories are going to have a little trouble with that.
Like magnets. So the idea.
Yeah, see, magnets aren't doing any of that stuff. Magnets don't move. There's nothing moving. Realistically, there's. All right, see, you got to be really careful because there's stuff moving, but it's not moving outside the magnet in any kind of. It's where there's stuff moving inside the magnet. Everything's always moving inside the magnet. But that's not the magnet's just a filter.
Idea that charge, positive, negative, is a real thing, and it's a fundamental thing that rules the universe. The electric universe, for instance.
Right, and me. But not electric. If I was going to call it something, I'd say the magnetic universe, because electric is just a byproduct of magnetism. But it's really all, to reference my website again, this is the game right here. Is the relationship between protons and electrons, and the fact that the force between them leaks out. The black thing, the red stuff leaks out. The red thing, the black stuff leaks out. So there's no pressure between them that can ever be maintained, and the external pressure pushes them together. And in the opposite case of similar on similar, the opposite happens when blacks reflect off black and red reflects off red, and as you bring things closer together you get a higher frequency of reflection, which ends up being, as a practical matter, more force, more impacts. It's always about the number of impacts. Defines the power of a force that are always perpetual. So the only thing that's perpetually moving in the universe are these little bits, the little quanta bits, the field bits, and the rest of the stuff can only capture some of that motion for moments of time, and that's what the frequency represents. So anyway, David also he does an interview with another guy, and they start talking about how time doesn't exist and time isn't real, and it's I don't know whether you call that hyperbole or what, but it's just saying it a little bit too aggressively. I guess I would argue this is too aggressive. Charge is not real. Too aggressive. when you don't have any other explanation for the fact that attraction and repulsion are different effects. First, they're real effects, and they're caused by something, yes. But again, it's like saying gravity isn't real. It just wouldn't make any sense. The phenomenon is real. The cause is under debate. That's how you should approach this, I think.
I applaud a lot of their work. They do really great work, and they have the absolute right to be out there challenging mainstream and saying, hey, the world's more electric. But they have electric fields, they have models, and they all have charge on them. They all have fields. And there's no physicality to those.
Yes, that's the problem with their model, is they don't have a mechanism to make any of the stuff happen again. So again, it's another theory that just puts it off into some place we can't see or we can't describe. The mechanism is an invisible force mechanism, when, in my opinion, it can be described as a real force mechanism. It's like Feynman's virtual photons are real photons. Real in the sense that there's real little bits of energy that go through the magnet, and when they go through the magnet, they're changed, and then that change affects electrons. Alright, that's probably enough. No need to beat it to death, but yes, language, it's just an interesting subject. So, he's that's his professional degree thing. And I'm an amateur nitpicker about language, but you have to be so careful on how you use words, and I do try to be careful. And yeah, that's all. I don't think this is careful enough, that's all I'm saying. Too aggressive. Yeah, so, till next time and such, and so forth and whatnot. So many things to do.